Thursday, making sense of being in COVID-19, or trying to make sense, I guess. We're trying to make sense. And today, as we wait for more people to join us, today we're going to talk about some ideas, theories, controversies that are swarming the internet right now. There's so much information coming at us. There's so many ideas being purported on the internet. And how do we filter all of those, and how are they impacting us? I think it's really, really good to know how they're impacting us. More important than why I'm feeling this way or that way is, how did that idea end up impacting me this way, and how do other ideas impact me in my life? So in a couple minutes, we're going to get into ideas, theories, controversies. I wouldn't say conspiracies. We're not going to go there, are we?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Oh, we are? Your favorite place.
Yep.
Everything's a conspiracy. Cool. So,
and just before we go into this, we want to mention that we've had some feedback from people who, and we did consider this, we wanted to address the fact that our Prime Minister in Canada addresses the nation every day at 11:15. And so we've had a number of people saying they'd love to come and listen to us, but they also feel it's really important that they're getting the message from the PM.
Trudeau or you? And they're picking Trudeau.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so starting next week, Tuesday and Thursday, we'll continue to do this, but we're going to do it at noon instead of 11. So we'll make sure that we put notices everywhere, and hopefully you're still able to come on. But we'll be doing this at noon every day instead of 11 o'clock.
So noon
for lunch.
Noon next Tuesday and Thursday, in respect of our Prime Minister. There you go. I tried to convince Tara that there was more people listening from outside of Canada than inside Canada, but she wouldn't buy it. There you go. So before we begin, I'd like to do a review of the three-step process to move from a very negative state into a very positive state. And it's really easy, really simple. Now remember, the first step is to break your emotional state. And the best way to break an emotional state is to change the sensory modality you're in. So you could be, if you're feeling negative emotions, you're in a kinesthetic state. And the best way to move out of a negative kinesthetic or negative emotional state is to move into a visual state. And a really easy way to do that is to look up. So if you're at home, look up and imagine, or wherever you are, look up, except if you're driving. Look up and imagine you can see your mobile number on a billboard in front of you. And notice what color the letters are. And notice what color the background is. And as you see your number on the billboard, read your telephone number backwards from the last number to the first number. Now that changes your modality from kinesthetic into visual. It also activates a different part of your brain. Now your negative emotional state is broken. This is a bulletproof, absolutely tried and tested way of breaking emotional states. We teach it. I also have used it with probably 50 live demos, where I'm in front of a crowd, more than that, where a person starts to get negative emotional arousal, and we break state by having them see their telephone number on a billboard and read it backwards. So that breaks the emotional state. The next thing to do is you're already looking up, so stare at a point, somewhere looking up at a ceiling or where the walls meet the corner, and as you're staring at that corner, keep your head and eyes steady, and notice how you can see everything to your left and right and above and below you. And as you see everything in front of you, while keeping your head and eyes steady, notice all the sounds around you. And then notice as you're focused totally on the sights and the sounds here in the now, your breathing moves from your chest to your diaphragm, and it starts to slow down. And notice how you're feeling at that moment. Notice the clothes on your body. Notice the air temperature in the room. And this directly correlates to what Eckhart Tolle talks about being in the now. And being in the now, hold that place and just sit without thought, just seeing, hearing, and feeling everything in the now. So we've gone from a negative emotional state, we've broken that state, and now in this heightened awareness of the now, the sights, the sounds, and the feelings that we're experiencing in the moment, we're now in a calm state. Our breathing is dropped into our diaphragm. Now we can move to an excited state. So if you're people who like kittens, this is a good time to think about kittens. If you're people who like puppies, it's a great time to think about puppies. If you're people who like motorcycle riding, Tim, it's a great time to think about going for a ride on your motorcycle. And it's a great time, for those of you who have installed a kinesthetic anchor, a stimulus point that's neurologically linked to positive emotional states, it's a great time to fire your positive emotion state anchor. So 3 steps: break state, peripheral vision, move into a happy place, an excited state, a resourceful state. Works every time. The more times you do it, this pattern now becomes your pattern. So whenever you're feeling inappropriate or unwarranted emotions, your mind is going to naturally go through these 3 steps. So this is brilliant. The second thing I want to talk about is breathing. I've been a real advocate for Wim Hof breathing. If you go onto TED Talks and you Google breathing techniques for health, you'll probably find 10 or 12 or 15 different presenters talking about how breathing is the key to health. And given that COVID-19 is a breathing, respiratory, immune system issue, breathing techniques seem to be very powerful. And again, on Tuesday I mentioned that J.K. Rowling came out and said that it was a breathing technique that helped her overcome her COVID-19, and that she learned it, I believe it's her husband who's the doctor, but you can actually see him in Queen's Hospital teaching the breathing technique. So whatever breathing technique you decide to use, congratulations, but I really encourage you to Google breathing techniques for health and watch some TED Talks. They're powerful.
There's a good one that a nurse put out where she gets the the person to stand on front of her and has them do this really, deep breathing exercise as she karate chops their back. And she swears by it. She's like, it's 2 minutes of doing this, and she's like, it just gets everything out as they're doing the breathing exercise. And it's absolutely adorable to watch her passion around what she does, and it's so good. If you can
I'm thinking Nurse Cratchit from a Jack Nicholson movie. All right, so take action to improve your immune system, to improve your own health. I think it's our responsibility, each of our responsibilities, to do as much as possible to be as healthy as possible. And we'll let it go there. I'm actually taking a long time to describe this because I'm really worried about Tara getting into conspiracy theories. But here you go.
Here you go. So this does lead us beautifully, because there are so many different ideas around different approaches to breathing, all of them being about the benefits of deep breathing. But of course, like anything else, there won't be one singular way to do the breathing. There's going to be a bunch of different methods of doing these same breathing techniques. And this is the basis of how different theories, right? Same idea, then there's all these branching off. We talk about it lots in NLP, how NLP is sort of like a thing, neuro-linguistic programming as developed by Bandler and Grinder. And then it branched out into all these different types of approaches, right? That each have their own unique, different ways of interpreting things or putting things into process or whatever it may be. So on a grand scale, that's what's happening right now. So I just came in here, I was saying to Alan, I had just read a big article. I know what's circulating right now is a lot of different ideas about Bill Gates. The range is, he's an angel sent from heaven going to save the earth. And other people saying, yeah, it's true. And other people saying he is, he should be in jail because of what he has done in terms of vaccines and everything in between. And this seems to be the case. It's expected, right? We have a global epidemic right now, or a global pandemic happening right now. There's going to be controversy around it. I think it would be, so bizarre if there wasn't. We wouldn't be a human species dealing with something at this level if there weren't all these different ideas and beliefs. And yet for people like us, the lay people who are sort of at the mercy of the information that comes to us, especially at a time when our news is so filtered through our own algorithms. And we know now that unless you are still sitting at, well, even then though, even the news channel that you pick, we know now today that news channels tend to have either a right or a left bias.
Yes.
That their funding has all sorts of reasons why they're going to showcase certain stories and not other stories, or take a perspective, right? So, and that goes all the way to our own algorithm. So when I'm scrolling my Facebook, we mentioned this a while ago, I tend to get stories that match with my focus, right? So these algorithms pick up what we're interested in, the beliefs that we have, the ideas that we already support, and we get more and more and more and more information that seem to support what's going to make us happy, right? What's going to affirm what we're looking for. And so for us as lay people, getting all of this information, I think it adds often to a negative vibe, because we tend to, not me, usually, but it tends to add to a negative vibe because people start to get really, passionate about their beliefs. It also contributes to anxiety and overwhelm for people when there's so much information and we know it's so important, we know it's affecting our lives, and some of it seems really frightening and we don't know what to believe. So that's what we're going to address through the filter of NLP. And as Alan pointed out, what's most important to understand is how this affects us, not in which way, but just how it actually affects us.
In the NLP world, we talk about the NLP communication model, but again, it leans on other communication models for its creation. But it says we receive information in, and this is fact, through our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory senses. That's the only way we can experience the world. The important point here is we're being bombarded with information. On any regular day, we'd be bombarded. Now we have a bombardment on a particular issue, COVID-19. And the range of positions in that COVID-19 argument are pretty profound. So we're bombarded with information. It's coming at us bigger than a fire hose, and we can only handle a tiny, tiny fraction of it that actually gets into our brain in a particular way. So we have the primary filter that we use is we delete almost 99% of the information coming at us. And we only let through a small fraction, 134 bits per second out of 2 million bits per second. So a tiny fraction. And the part that we let through uniquely. So my filters let certain information into me that is different than the information that Tara's filters let in. And each of you will have unique filters. So even though we're watching the same newscast, or reading the same paper, or listening to the same podcast, we will retain different pieces of information from that because we are using and running different filters. And what's important to know then is that little bit of information you let in the second combines with your physiology, how you're breathing, how you're standing, how you're sitting, how you're moving, to create your emotional state. So imagine that the world's coming at you in a fire hose of 2 million bits per second, and you're letting in 134 bits, and that's combining with how you're sitting, moving, breathing, to create your emotional state. So that's overwhelming, but there's also gives us a lot of points where we can exercise choice and control.
So your unconscious mind is, we've talked about this a couple of times now, but just to review very quickly, your unconscious mind, which is 90% of the machine up here, so the operating part of us, it's really easy for us to understand that the 90% that is unconscious, we can all easily agree that I don't know how to grow my fingernails, right? I don't.
No, you don't.
Most people, unless you're in the 0.00001% who actually understand, how the cells bind and what happens to the atoms and how they, and actually
and
understand.
Even knowing that, you can't make your nails grow.
So most of us don't know that. And even if we did know that, even if we had the information, but the reason we say we don't know is not because we don't actually know, because we do know, because it's only me up here. It's just me in here. I mean, I may be informed by whatever your beliefs are that I'm informed about, but I actually do know how to grow my fingernails. I do it every day. I just don't have a communicator. I don't have the ability to take that unconscious knowledge that I do have within myself and interpret it in an understandable, conscious way. So I can't extract that information from my brain and go, oh yeah, so here, and explain it to you, right? However, I still know how to do it because I'm doing it. And as Al pointed out, even if I did go ahead and learn how to do it, just by understanding it, just by understanding how that all works, I couldn't therefore, based on that knowledge, say to my mind, okay,
Curl my nails.
Quit it. Just stop growing my nails. I know how it works now, so I'm just going to stop that operation, right? Can't do that. And that's how the unconscious mind works, not only with our biological functions, which is easy to understand, but that is exactly how it operates when it comes to our emotions, to our beliefs, to our thoughts, to our actions, to our responses. What's generating underneath that 90%. So I know when I feel sad, just as I know when I see my fingernail come out, I realize it's happening, right? But it's only that tip of the final product that I actually see that confirms that. Well, when I feel sad, I know that I'm experiencing the emotion of sadness, but I could not explain to you any more easily than I could explain the fingernail, how it is that my brain and my body and my physiology and my neurology and everything else generates the feeling of sadness. And so because I don't know how to generate the feeling of sadness, it's equally the same when somebody says, hey Tara, you know what, stop feeling sad. Even if I understood it, even if I was able to understand all the nuances, the influences, all the little bitty pieces that went into that generation of sadness, it doesn't mean that I would know how to just switch it off and stop feeling sad.
Nope.
And I point this out, this like sort of detailed explanation, because our unconscious mind, that 90%, is taking information in all day long. So
it's listening.
Yeah.
It's listening to the world. It's listening to you, what you say, what you receive. Your unconscious mind's listening to everything and doing its very best job to run you. It's everything you're not conscious of.
And so, again, we gave the analogy of watching a movie. When you watch a movie, you know that it's not real. You understand that they are actors, cameras, scripts and all that kind of stuff.
Wait a minute.
And yet, you still get grasped by it, right? You still get drawn in. And it's because your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. And so it's reacting to it as if it's truly happening. Because while your conscious mind, that 10%, knows that it's actors and scripts and cameras, that 90% just knows that it's tremendously sad that this person died or got sick or they broke up or whatever the thing is. And so you feel that, right? Now, in the case of a movie, you have to just bring your conscious awareness back to the fact that it's not real and you can carry on with your day. But in that actual moment, if you're present in that moment, you're feeling what you're feeling because your brain is experiencing that as real. Now, when you're reading an article, so it may be the most ludicrous conspiracy theory that you have ever come across. It could be a belief that you are completely against, right? It could be something that is in contradiction with your own values or whatever it is, but you're fascinated by it, or intellectually you're stimulated by it, or for whatever reason you have decided to dive into this article or this theory or whatever it is, right? Or you're watching the YouTube or whatever. The YouTube. As that information comes in, the fact that your conscious mind is saying to you, I don't believe this, or I do believe this, or I agree or disagree or whatever, what you don't know, and what neither I nor Alan nor anybody else with any number of PhDs knows, is exactly how that particular story or idea or theory or belief is affecting you at an unconscious level.
That's right.
And if you don't question it, so if you allow yourself simply to sort of bring things in, and then without any conscious attention or any conscious thought to it, just kind of let yourself react. So maybe you get enraged, maybe you get really excited because you're right, maybe you get sad, whatever the response is. If you just continue to go about your day, you're not giving yourself the chance to have more active awareness of how that might be affecting you. Our focus is where our attention goes. And so if you're focused on something negative or positive, that is where you're going to continue to further influence your beliefs and all that kind of stuff. Do you want to jump in on anything?
Nope, keep going.
Okay. So in order to do a pattern interrupt or disrupt what could potentially be making you feel negative, if you're feeling fantastic, then, just listen to this for interest's sake.
Anchor it.
There's nothing you got to do to change what's going on for you.
If you're feeling great, anchor it.
Yeah. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling suddenly off balance, or if you're confused, or if you're legitimately, like, I will tell you, I'm someone who, I get really moved by this stuff. Like, a really compelling article one way is going to cause me to really reconsider a whole bunch of my beliefs. And then, as is true of just about every single thing that is out there in the public, I could find another equally smart, equally educated, equally compelling, equally charming person who gives the completely opposite side of the story, right? And some of these things really matter. And with coronavirus, with COVID, this stuff really matters, right? Like, it really matters to all of us what is really going on out there.
It's affecting individuals' health. It's affecting our collective health. It's affecting our individual ability to earn income. It's affecting our collective economies. It's affecting our educational system. And it's affecting our sense of personal freedoms, rights and freedoms. And while it's a virus, and you know, the amount of information we're getting, it's either the greatest thing that's ever happened to humanity, or it's the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. But it is important, and it's a great opportunity for learning self-awareness and for societal awareness, I believe. And that's what I think the message that Tara and I are constantly trying to get across, that this is an immense opportunity for understanding.
So here's my suggestions in terms of, is it my?
Yeah, that's okay. These are Tara's suggestions.
These are mine.
Yeah.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious about this, I would say that take stock of what your values are. So we talked about values before. You can go back and look at those really briefly. Your values are the things that matter most to you.
The things that are really, really important to you.
So I think at a time like this, if you're experiencing overwhelm, if you're experiencing anxiety, one of the most, step 1 or 2 of what you should be doing right now, what you could be doing right now, is to list your values. Write down what is most important to you in 2 ways. 1, what is most important to you right now in your daily life, like today? So what is most important to you before you go to bed tonight? What are the values that you must consider in order for you to feel as though you're going to have a successful day? Just write them down, right? So, whatever, taking care of your kids, taking care of your career, rest, whatever they are, right?
Often your values are manifested in your behavior. You're going to live your highest value. Some people might say, well, doing X is my highest value, achieving X, but they do nothing to get it. I would argue that that's not their highest value. Their highest values are expressed in their behavior.
And this isn't a to-do list. This is not an action list.
It is not a to-do list.
This is simply a list of what is most important to me right now. And I promise you, the act of writing this down is going to be eye-opening for you. The second list, I would say, is to make a list of what is most valuable to you in your greater life. So those can be different, right? Like today I have some specific priorities that need to get done. They're likely going to line up fairly well with my overall life values, but I would say it would be useful to just sort of line those up. So if I get out of today, if I get past today and I think about my life at large, what is most important to me? I would write down those values. And I think that if there are certain things that are causing you stress, like how is the government, allocating money, and am I going to get money, and how do I, all of the different theories, ideas, beliefs, you go online and look up, should I, is it going to be better for our household financially to do this? And then you get all these different responses, everything else. Now, if that's in line with one of your values, if one of your values is financial stability for my family, then that is something that you're going to have to pay attention to, right? But if you just got caught up in, as I don't know who might, but in a, conspiracy theory out there that is about some of this stuff that just, when
COVID-19
you take stuff,
is not real.
Yeah, but even is COVID-19 developed by the, chemical plant in China, or was it picked up from the animals at the markets? Well, you know what? Right now, today, that probably isn't a thing that lines up in any of my values.
Spending time on that doesn't line up on Tara's values. It doesn't support our children, it doesn't support our family, it doesn't support our business.
It's not that I don't find it interesting, because I do. And in the longer term, if it turns out that there's some sort of crazy conspiracy out there around like biochemical whatever, in time that may really affect me. But and for some of you out there, that may in fact be somehow in your values today or in your life.
To address that, to know it, to investigate it.
But if you're like me and you just get caught up in it because it's kind of fascinating, but it also creates this like negative vibe at a time when you probably don't need any more negative vibes going on, this may be a time to say to yourself, okay, this isn't in line with anything that I value, and it's not making me feel very good. Therefore, put it on your like let go list. So it sounds really simple, but it's actually not. This could be a lifesaver.
Could be simple.
For people it may be just very simple. It could be a lifesaver for some people who are getting wrapped up in things where so my next step is, once you have those values, you can do a really good sort of shakeout of just, the beliefs and all the things you're spending your time thinking about, reading about, whatever, listening to. Let go of those ones that aren't in your list of values, because right now that isn't where your focus has to go. Doesn't mean you can't come back to them later or whatever, but right now if they're not in your values, I would say let them go. And then the list of what can you control and what can't you. And so this, on just a regular basis throughout your life, at any time that you feel as though you don't have control over yourself, it's always going to be a benefit of the things that I just spent the last 3 hours thinking about. Negatively, of course, right? If it's positive, just keep going, you're good. But if it's negative things, of those things, how many are within my control and how many are not? And it's not that you need to ignore the list that you're not in control of. There are certain things I don't have control of. I can still pay attention to them. But in the prioritizing of my energy, my time, my money, I promise you it's going to be a much better use of my time, my energy, my resources to focus on the things that I can control. And so
Absolutely.
Separating those for you, when you get down then to the things that you value and the things that are within your control, now you've got a pretty good list of things that chances are, if you use the tools of just recognizing that beliefs are beliefs, they are not truths, they're just beliefs. If you look at what are you moving away from, what are you moving toward, all of these things that we've gone through that are frames that put you back at cause in your life, you're going to realize that it's not nearly as overwhelming as you think that it is.
And in fact, you're going to experience the loss of overwhelm. As overwhelming dissipates or disappears, you'll experience it physiologically. As you go through these steps that Tara just articulated, you'll actually feel different. You'll feel calm. And really, let's wrap it up and put a bow on it. We're coming to 11:30.
One more thing to say.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make clear that whatever your beliefs are, I would encourage you to avoid feeling as though that there's any shame around believing what you believe. There's all these ideas out there.
Yes.
And if you could begin and end every sentence, if we all had the ability within our own mind to say, I don't know, but here's the story I'm telling myself. Right now, I choose to believe that, the government, I'm talking personally, has things well under control, that I'm in a really good situation, that there's some questions that I really need to be asking and paying attention to, there's some stuff I need to teach my kids, and end it again with, and that's the story I'm telling myself today. And
it's a good story.
Open yourself up and really honestly be cognizant of the fact that there are very few people, there are very few experts, absolute experts, and even the experts disagree. And so the best you can do is say to yourself, here's what I'm choosing to believe today. And here's the things within my control. Here's the action I'm going to take to make my life better right now with the information I have. And I'm going to let tomorrow be tomorrow. And that will bring you a peace of heart that feels better in this mess of things.
So now let's wrap it up and put a bow on it. NLP is about understanding how we process information and the belief structure that we get from it. And so every time we come here to meet with you guys in this podcast or webinar, whatever it is, we're really encouraging you to understand that you have both choice and you have control, and you can be at what we call at cause. You can be at effect. You can be at effect of the situation, or you can be at cause of how you react to the situation. So all the information Tara and I are sharing is to encourage you to always understand that you have choice and you have control and you can be at cause. And that we have to be aware of our filters and how our filters are allowing information to come into and the meaning we're giving it. So I'd like to close with that today. We'll see you on Tuesday at 12 noon. And for those of you who are NLP people, if you're already NLP trained and you're thinking about getting into life coaching, we're running a one-day live online event next week talking about our protocol PACE. So if you're interested in PACE and want to learn more about how you might become a coach, contact admin@inspiredoutcomes.ca. And also if you go to our website, inspiredoutcomes.ca, there's a link to access a complimentary conversation with Tara, 30 minutes. If you're dealing with stuff and you just want to talk, just hit that link, book 30 minutes with Tara and I. It's absolutely free. We'd love to help you through anything you're going through. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you Tuesday at noon. Cheers.